Okay. Hi, BK. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Like the fish tanks, definitely. I think that looks. And you know what I just noticed in the one behind you? You've got like Roman columns.
Yeah, it's like my daughter picked that out. It's kind of like a little bit of a Roman ruins that are supposed to be underwater there, so fish to enjoy.
Well, is that relevant to your book?
I think when she saw it, she was like, "Oh, that's really cool. You should go. You should buy that to put it in the tank." I don't think it, but now I can use that as part of my branding. I'm sure, so I'll do that. I'll start incorporating that.
You should get a laminated book cover and sort of stick it in there, leaning against the thing, you know?
That's a great idea. I should. I try to use as many props as possible. I once actually had my dog involved in some of the trying to do some book branding. So I got to get my fishing dog involved as well. So.
I think that would look kind of interesting. I mean, it would be unique because a lot of times when I interview authors, they'll have their book propped up behind them on something so it's in the shot. But actually in the fish tank with the columns, I think would be really neat. That would be a
Yeah,
novel
that would be
idea.
I do need to maybe I'll cut one of the covers off and go get it laminated and slide it down in there and see if it works. The fish, I don't know how much the fish read, but maybe it'd be good branding, good advertising.
Okay, so the book we're talking about is called The Last Roman, and it's the third book in a trilogy. What's the trilogy called?
The trilogy itself is called The Last Roman, and there's actually three books in it. The first one is Exile, and that launched in May of last year. The second book is Abyss, and that launched in September of last year, and then the third one will come out in March of this year, and it's called Absolution. So they all have the main title, The Last Roman, and then with each of the subtitles.
What inspired you to start this writing epic of yours?
Yeah, well, I read a lot as a kid. I was very voracious. We moved around a lot, so I would go to libraries and check out books and just read all kinds of history, fantasy, science fiction, and so forth. And then sometime in my mid to late 20s, I decided I had my own story to tell. And I don't really know the genesis of where this specific story came from, but I do know that I started writing the first book in this series right around 1998 or so. And then it kind of, over the years, has gone from a much bigger book to a smaller book to a medium-sized book and re-edits and edits. And I don't even know how many different times it was edited. And eventually, about 2 years ago, I decided that I needed to get it published, wanted to push it out there. It was during COVID and was spending a lot more time at home and I wasn't traveling. So we got it professionally edited, professional cover design, and then finally launched it in May of last year.
Did you self-publish it?
Yes, I did all the self-publishing myself. Like I said, other than the editing, I had two different editors go through it. I actually took me three cover designers to find this cover designer, but everything else is done myself. I do my own marketing, Facebook ads, Amazon, all that stuff. I'm kind of a one-stop shop for everything now. I've learned a lot about the publishing industry as I've gone through this process, that's for sure.
How do you find self-publishing? Because some people, I mean, there's basically three different types of publishing avenues that people can go: self-publishing, hybrid, and full-blown traditional.
Yeah. So I never, for this one, originally about 10 or 15 years ago, I was planning on going traditional. I did do a round of querying probably 15 years ago to maybe 30 or 40 different agents to look for an agent. But when I decided to publish this time, I didn't even look at that route because of the timing. I wanted to get the book. I'd spent so many years working on it. I just wanted to get it out. I wanted to get the whole series published. And if you go an agent traditional, you're probably talking at least a 2 or 3 years minimum process to go through that. So I decided to go self-publishing. The hybrid route was paying a lot of money to somebody else to do a lot of the things you can do yourself, which are really not that hard, to be quite honest with you. Or you can even subcontract out parts of those things. So I decided to go the self-publishing route. I love it. I love having full control of my work. I love being able to choose the author, the cover designer, what my editors. I did basically, from when we did the audiobook, I 100% let another company do that. Podium did the audiobook for me, so they managed that entire process. that just took a little bit off my plate because I was just pretty overwhelmed with marketing and advertising for the series, but I didn't really have time to do the audiobook itself as well. So they took care of all that. So I enjoy it. I enjoy having the freedom. I miss having access to brick and mortar, like, Barnes and Nobles nationwide. That's probably the biggest thing you really miss out on. And then maybe some access to other authors that would do art reviews and things like that. But as far as the rest of the process, I'm pretty happy with it.
Was there one part of the process that you didn't like doing?
No, I think I enjoyed pretty much most of it. I learned a lot along the way. I never knew how to do a website. Now I know how to do websites. I never knew anything about Facebook advertising or Amazon advertising. I like some of that. The public relations part is a little bit tough because it's very much like querying an agent. You send a lot of emails out to people and you get a lot, you don't hear much back. You can send an email to 20 bookstores and only one bookstore will get back with you. That's probably the part I like the least. The difficulty getting the exposure to me is the part I like the least. It's really tough to get, even if you have money you want to spend on ads, it's really tough to find a place to spend it that's effective, right? So getting the exposure is probably the part that I like the least.
Well, yeah, that's true. And advertising, actually, that's common for all advertising. What is it? It's about 10% return, typically.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the Super Bowl ad, if you want to pay $5 million for 30 seconds, the return is not as great as you would think it would be, but it's the exposure, right?
Yeah, for me, that's the tough thing. Is it took me probably 6 months to dial in the right audiences on my Facebook ads, the right bids to do on Amazon ads, and things like that. There's so many different factors and variables to where you actually see your spend on Amazon or your spend on advertising is less than your royalties you're making on your sales. And that's the point where you're actually, okay, now you're breaking even from that perspective, and then you got to figure out how to scale that so that you can increase the amount of sales without just it dropping right off the board. Because you could easily spend a couple $100s a day on Facebook. They'll spend all your money for you all you want. But will you see any additional sales if you do that? And that's the real challenge, I think, in the process.
Well, now I'm curious about that. Have you realized any sales off of Facebook ads for your book?
I feel like I do. I mean, I run about 4 different types of ads through Facebook. I'll do different creatives, so different cover designs, different quotes with the cover designs, different audiences. And I definitely see when they get stale and I see sales drop off on Amazon itself. And then I see when I modify my audience or I come up with a new creative, I'll definitely see a bump in my sales. Well, I've done a lot of discussions on a lot of different groups, and a lot of people don't seem to get a lot of Facebook engagement. But maybe it's because my cover attracts to certain people, or I get lucky, or whatever it is. But I feel like I have some good traction with Facebook.
Well, that's what I hear more often than not, is that Facebook doesn't really work for people selling books. I'm glad to hear that for you it's been somewhat successful.
Yeah, that's one of the only 2 places I do advertising anymore. I use Amazon a little bit, but my spend on Amazon is very minimal. I do very minimal bids for clicks, so I probably only spend $3 or $4 a day on Amazon. And the only other place I do it is through Facebook. Now, what I haven't done is shut off Facebook for 2 weeks and see if my sales continue the same as they are now, or if they go up or go down, right? And that would tell me for sure that that Facebook is or not working. But I haven't been willing to. Once I kind of got some momentum there, I wanted to kind of keep that up with Facebook. So I haven't gone that route yet. We'll have to see if I get antsy enough to try that. So we'll see.
Well, let's see. Give us a quick synopsis of your trilogy. Just kind of a general overview.
Yeah, so it's a historical fiction and a modern thriller. So it's a lot. If you know the movie Highlander, and then it mixed with John Wick or Jason Bourne for the modern portion. So it has a modern plot line that runs across all 3 books. That's pretty consistent across the 3 books with the main set of characters. And then about every other chapter, we do a flashback in history. We cover different things like all the way back to the Roman period, to the Battle of Tours in the medieval times, to the Crusades, World War I, World War II. So there's different flashback periods that have those same characters in them. The characters are immortal. They've been around for around 2,000 years. And they're basically the protagonist, the antagonist, and then some support characters around that as well. And what we do is we just kind of follow the modern day thriller with a little bit of development from the flashbacks. And the trilogy will pretty much end up with book 3 with a pretty succinct ending. And then the plan from there is to go do some prequels where I'll write an entire book on one period of time in history using the same group of characters in that period of time.
Historical fiction, that means that you depict history accurately, but you inject fictitious characters?
Yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it. We'll use the Battle of Tours as an example. The Battle of Tours will happen. It'll be historically accurate, the location, the timing, the winners, the losers, and essentially what the flow of the battle and so forth. But I'll insert my characters in there. So obviously dialogue, things that my characters do will be my interpretation of what they would have done if they'd have been there. But I will also bring in some main characters, like if there's a specific leader, like I haven't done a Napoleonic one, but say there was a period of, you did a battle of Waterloo, my characters might ride past Napoleon and see him in the distance or something. So I try to keep bringing a little bit of main characters or historical characters that people would recognize. But for the most part, I use dialogue and the interaction of my characters with the backdrop of that historical fiction, that historical setting.
You plan on doing any more writing?
Yeah, I think I'm going to continue doing this. It's kind of a post-career plan. It'll be, I guess, like the best way to put it is a second career after I retire from my original career. And I would like to get probably about 4 or 5 books in this series, in this franchise established. And then I may venture out. I have some ideas for maybe even some science fiction, maybe some other thriller type of series that I may do in the future. So I have some other things kind of lined up, but right now I just sent book 3 off to my editor, so I'm kind of washed my brain a little bit of writing and kind of taking a couple days to figure out what my next steps will be while that's out being edited. So.
Oh, okay. When do you expect book 3 to be available?
It should be ready to go March 28th. That's the launch plan I have right now on Amazon. And we're marching pretty good towards that date. So I don't anticipate, unless we have a major problem or major feedback from my beta readers that don't like where it's going, then I anticipate that being the date we launch it, March 28th. Okay,
great. Well, we do have to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you have a website you want to give out?
Yeah, you can go to bkgreenwood.com. Learn more about myself, the books. There's options there for the ebook. The Audible book is out for book 1, and book 2 comes out actually a couple of weeks in February. And you can see some of the reviews that are in there, and then any other questions you have. And if you order through my website, I actually send out signed paperbacks to anybody who orders through the website. So.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It was nice meeting you, and best of luck. I hope this